It's always exciting, Lacey, to visit Montreal. It's one of the most exciting cities in all of North America, especially when it's for a new car launch.
Driving Television headed to Montreal to try out the newest introduction to the subcompact class, the Mazda2.
You know what? This class is heating up because not only does Mazda have the Mazda2 in the subcompact range, but also Ford with the Fiesta.
In beautiful old Montreal, test driving the Mazda2. Now this is the first subcompact car from Mazda since the 323, and that was discontinued in the early 90s.
The Mazda2 has been sold around the world since 2002, and this is actually the second generation. So Mazda's decided to spread the love and finally bring it here to Canada.
The differences between the Ford Fiesta and the Mazda2 are significant. It's really quite a simple story from a technical standpoint. If you look through a list of parts on an individual part-by-part basis, they share virtually nothing in common. That said, the platform architecture is similar, and if you were to look at the cars from underneath, from the bottom, you would see that things are mounted in similar locations. But other than sharing a common architecture, they really share nothing in terms of how the vehicles were developed after that point.
There are a couple of differences, not only to the styling, but more importantly to the engine and transmission. The Mazda2 is powered by a 1.5-liter four-cylinder engine, putting out only 100 horsepower. Now, it's not the most potent engine, and this is why the Mazda2 engineers were so diligent in reducing the weight compared to the previous Mazda2 that sold in other parts of the world. In fact, the Mazda2 is the lightest car in this class.
The manual transmission is a 5-speed and the automatic a 4-speed. Mazda claims that going with just 4 gears makes a lighter tranny, but we found the car searching for the right gear under certain instances. It should be said that the Mazda2 has a nimble feel and does exhibit a perky nature.
As far as zoom, what we do is we talked about proportion. All our cars have a very dynamic proportion. We keep as much weight and mass between the wheel centers and as little overhang in the rear and as little overhang in the front. That tends to give the car just a very dynamic proportion without any line, without any graphic. Then we put in a very strong character line, shoulder line, a very distinctive front fender line, and usually a very distinctive highlight or character line down below the center line of the wheels.
The Mazda2 is priced right, starting at just $13,995 and comes standard with power door locks, power mirrors, power windows, auxiliary jack, and a rear wiper. Not bad at all for that price. The interior is well designed and looks similar to other Mazda products.
We've been driving around Montreal. We've been in this little Mazda2 all day long. So I'm in the front, Lacey's there in the back, Brian, our camera guy, is here on the right. Now this is a little wee car, but if you're sitting in the front, the seats are very comfortable. The back seat is a little bit of a pinch if you're going to be there all day, but for a commuter car driving around for short trips, it's definitely fine. The dash is well laid out. The engine is quiet at idle. You can barely even hear that it's running, and the car is smooth and soaks up these awful bumpy roads in Montreal pretty much with ease. Unlike the Ford Fiesta, the Mazda2 does not come as a sedan, only a hatch. The Fiesta hatchback is priced much higher than the Mazda2. The top-line GS from Mazda is only slightly more expensive than the base model Fiesta at $18,195.
Ever since we stopped selling the 323 in 1996, since then, the #1 product request from dealers has really been, you got to get into the subcompact segment again. I can't tell you how excited we are to be, launching a subcompact car. It's a growing segment, and for us, it reaches a very important customer base that for so many years we've kind of not been able to reach. So we're really excited.
Well, we've spent several hours driving through these busy streets in Montreal, and I have a huge appreciation for a subcompact small car like this Mazda2. The steering is nice and light and responsive, so it makes getting in and out of traffic really easy, parking really easy. I really think this is a fantastic city car. Montreal is a great city to test any car's suspension and ability to soak up bumps, and the Mazda2 is surprisingly smooth, quiet, and refined, which has not always been the case with other subcompacts. This North American version has a retuned suspension to deal with concrete road surfaces, plus the long wheelbase also makes a huge difference in dealing with bumps.
The main reason most people buy a car like this is the cost of ownership, and the Mazda 2 has good fuel numbers but not outstanding, especially compared to the Fiesta. It achieves 7.5 liters per 100 kilometers in the city and 6 on the highway when equipped with an automatic transmission. Well, we've had a chance to drive, obviously, the Mazda 2 in Montreal. If you've never been to Montreal, do yourself a favor and go. You'll have a great time. We're back with the car here, and we've driven it a little bit more. Now, Lacey, what are your final thoughts on this car?
You know what, Zach? I love the suspension in this Mazda 2. I mean, it's so smooth and so quiet. You've got available skins to put on this car, so if you want, you can customize it, which is a fantastic feature. The interior fit and finish looks amazing for a car in this class, and the hatchback is cheaper than the Ford Fiesta. And you know what, Zach? I have to be honest. On the downside, I was expecting more from this car. It doesn't have best-in-class fuel economy or horsepower. It should have a better transmission in it. When you look at other cars like the Fiesta, I just wanted more. Now, don't get me wrong, there's still the Zoom in the Mazda 2. It was a lot of fun to drive, but I don't know, I wanted a little bit more.
Well, I'm going to touch on a few of those things as well, but on the upside of this car, you get a nicely finished car on the inside. It looks well made, and a lot of the other cars in this class look kind of cheap in comparison. You also get a good level of standard features, especially little things you don't think about until you don't have it, like a rear wiper on this car, an auxiliary jack for your stereo, and those little things really add up, especially for a vehicle under $14,000 to make you feel satisfied. And the price is very attractive as well. When you look at other vehicles in this class, like the big contenders of the Yaris, they have a super cheap one that they put out there with really nothing on it. The Fit is much more expensive. The real value leader in the whole bunch is the Accent from Hyundai, and they're going to always be the cheapest, but the most basic car as well. And on the downside, Lacey, you're right, it's a fine car. It has that zoom. It's a nimble, fun car to drive. But when you look at the horsepower for a brand new entry into the marketplace, the Fit has 117 horsepower. The new Fiesta has 120 horsepower. The Fiesta has a 6-speed automatic transmission. And this car, right out of the gate, looks like it's one step behind those two. And you know, next time they update the Mazda 2, you know it's going to have even more zoom, bigger zoom.
Zach, I think you mean...
You can't say on TV, can you? Can you say on TV?
Can't get enough of the new Mazda 2? See the rest of the Montreal interviews at drivingtelevision.com. After the break, does a red car cost more to insure than a green car? We'll give you the straight goods on 3 insurance myths. It's been updated to include new exterior and interior styling. Can Toyota bring buyers back to the Avalon with a new all-in-one price? And why is Zach so fired up about leather seats?
But rarely do you really get full leather seats.